Dr. Winters. Hot?
This is Zartan, and you're listening to G.I. Joe, a real American headcast.
Can the world oppose the deadliest of foes? Cobra! Joes will risk it all to end the evil call of Cobra. They never give up, they never say die. Walking tall with banners high, they sound the battle cry. There's trouble over land and sea and air. G.I. Joe is there.
G.I. Joe, the Real American Headcast, is the code name for Aaron's daring, highly trained headcast. Its purpose? To podcast about G.I. Joe, fighting Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe. Fighting for freedom wherever there's trouble over land and sea and air. Cobra! Retreat! Retreat! G.I. Joe! G.I. Joe is there! G.I. Joe!
Hey, Joe's Aaron Moss here, a.k.a. Brother Head, back with another episode of G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast. Joining us this month, we have Mr. Brad Abraham, a.k.a. Everyone Hater. I mean, Zartan Hater. I know you're in Zartan now, aren't you? It's Serpentor and Dr.
I think he hates Duke now, I think.
No. I have made my peace with Zartan and with Toe Jam X and Dr. Brainfart and Serpentless. I've made my peace with all of them because there was a new character coming along very shortly for me to bestow my dislike upon.
Oh, I bet it's going to be the one that I fell in love with.
Probably is. It probably is. But
Everyone say goodbye to Brad. This is Brad's last episode, everybody. So,
this is going to be fun.
but then you'd miss all my comments and my pithy comments.
yes, yeah. that's why this is your last episode. No. Also joining us is Mr. Kevin Reitzel, a.k.a. Raider Nerd.
What is up? Look, I'm excited to talk about episode or issue 57 there, side by side with Destro. Yes. Also joining us from the land down under.
He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. And he said, I come from a land down under.
We have our buddy David Finn. Hey, Dave.
Yeah, no, I'm the man in black here. I will fix my light by next show, but
Well, you wonder why I always dress in black. Why you never see bright colors on my back. And why...
Good, I'm glad to be here. Happy to be here. Looking forward to talking about 57 and an appearance of an Aussie.
And and Dave ain't no bogan either, but he does like his Tim Tam Slams. He knows what I'm talking about.
Indeed. Excited to be here, guys, and what a fine comic to pick.
And joining us over in the chat, we have Mr. Heinz Koch. Hey, Heinz. He says, gentlemen, great to see everyone. How you doing, Heinz? And his guess for Brad's new hatred is Raptor, is who Heinz is guessing. So, so that's why this will be Brad's last. So, Heinz, say goodbye to Brad. It's been nice talking with him. Before we get started with the show proper, I do want to announce that this episode is sponsored by Big Danny Cool. He's one of our Patreon sponsors over on patreon.com/headcastnetwork. Thank you very much for your support, Big Danny Cool. Appreciate having you, man. But enough chit chat. Let's go ahead and get started with the show proper. This month, we're here to talk about G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, issue 57.
And a cartoon.
Oh, and a cartoon, yes. And coming up later, the cartoon, Hearts and Cannons.
Great title.
Which we'll talk about. So let's go ahead and look at the comic first, I guess, because that's how we do things around here. For those that's listening, the cover got an orangish background, got our G.I. Joe Royal American Hero title. It says in like a yellowish side by side of Destro, and the Destro looks like the bottom of that's green.
Getting more of kind of a light, kind of a, I don't know, grapefruit color, I guess. I don't know.
Something, yeah. But we've got Destro center screen holding up his gun. Behind him, flanking on either side, we have Lady J and Flint, both holding their weapons, backing up Destro.
And Flint's pulling a face.
Yeah, he's pissed. He's a little jealous
Yeah,
right
I
now
know.
because he knows that Lady J's getting some.
Exactly.
So,
That's it.
Let's go and get some numbers on this cover, though. Out of 1 to 5 Yojo Colas, 1 being it sucks, and 5 being like issue 43 that Kevin has on his wall.
By the way, that one right there is signed by Larry Hama. Just throwing that out there.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So, Brad, 1 to 5 Yojo Colas. What would you give this cover?
I'd give this one a 3. It's not my favorite. It's fine. It's not my least favorite. It definitely delivers what the issue is. I think maybe it's just the background being sort of just a straight color. Maybe what I don't like about it as much. I kind of wish it had been an action scene or depicting a specific scene from the book. Maybe an inverse of the 31 with maybe, say, Destro lying on the ground pinned by rubble or something in the foreground, and Lady J and Flint looming over him, and Flint having the exact same expression and Lady J having the exact same cleavage, which I just can't keep my eyes off of for some reason. In a good way. It's good. It's a fine cover. It's not my favorite though.
Talking about cleavage, Kevin.
Oh yeah, there's cleavage there. What I find kind of funny about this, dude, I just realized is, of course, the penciler is Mike Zeck.
Mike Zeck with Betty Zeck.
But the inker is Bob McLeod, which I find funny because this takes place in Scotland, and it's a character whose lineage comes from Scotland. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Real quick, Kevin, a little late, but
I think it's an okay cover as well. I agree with Brad. It would have been nice if we had and more of an action scene. And since there's a cool scene with the World War II glider, I thought that would have been a really cool scene. Kind of like a la was it Rio Lindo thing where they're on the plane and stuff. Something like that would have been kind of cool. Not kind of like a poser shot, but it definitely gives a message like, oh, okay, cool. These guys are definitely working together. Yeah, I mean, it's an okay one. I would give it probably maybe how many out of 5 you said, right?
Yeah, 5.
I would give it maybe a 3.5, something like that. Yojo Colas. Yeah.
Very nice. Because again, unlike the Long Box Crusade, the Headcast Network, we don't mind halvesies.
And what's interesting too is, and Brad made a comment on the background. I don't mind the single color background. I just don't like the choice of the color. I would have chose something that popped a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah.
What color would you have chose?
You know what? I'm thinking more of like maybe more red, or maybe like, I don't know, if silver would have been a good background for it just because of his helmet. But something kind of cool like that. But otherwise, I would have preferred an action scene that shows these guys kind of kicking ass together.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Finn.
Still staying awake here. Look, I love the people on it. The images of the Flint, Destro, and Lady J. Yeah, I really like that. The sort of weird color choice. It is kind of an odd color. It reminds me of something like you'd see in a juice.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's like side by side with Destro, and then it has them there. So you're like, oh, sweet, it's a team up. I'd give it 3.5. I also love that I've got the down in the bottom left hand corner the black Spidey symbol, which I do remember from the time was on all the covers, and
Yeah.
I used to love that. So it's getting a 3.5 from me. It's pretty cool.
Very nice. And yeah, I'm right along with Dave and Kevin on that. I would give it a 3, but for 2 reasons, I'm going to bump up to 3.5. One, again, as I've talked about
Yeah.
previously, the issue after this was my first issue, and I picked this one up in short order after that. So hold a special place for that. Plus, it has Lady J's cleavage. So
Well, Lady J's doing her best to bump the cover up. She's doing her best. She's got the girls
so
out.
that bumps it up from a 3 to
yeah,
3.5. So
she's trying.
yeah, so
Yeah.
definitely a 3.5 because of the cleavage. So again, I'm a male chauvinist pig, but that's
Yeah,
all
that's
right.
fine, man.
I'm willing to accept who I am.
I was being a silent male chauvinist pig by zooming in on that.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you,
That's
Kevin.
funny.
Thank you.
That's funny.
That's why I have you on the show. One of many reasons.
75 cents. 75 cents. Can you imagine that, like, back in the day, like 75 cents is
Yeah,
all it would
that's-
cost you guys to get this? It probably would have been over $1 here or around $1 in Australia, I reckon.
Canada's saying 95 cents on the cover, so yeah, closer to that, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, spoilers. Within the next year, I know it jumps up to $1.
That was a.
Ouch.
What? It's crazy talk.
I remember that day in Canada. It was
Yeah.
$1.25, and I thought $1.20 for a comic book. That's ridiculous. Little did I know.
Well, I'll tell you guys a funny story. I went down, it's not G.I. Joe, but 2000 AD. I went down to buy my first issue, and it was 95 cents, and I picked it up and thought, sweet, under $1. The next week, it went to $1.20. I was so annoyed. I came just in time for the inflation. I'll never forget it.
When I was doing my notes on this, I actually went to issue 67.
Yeah.
And I noticed that one was $1. So I know in the next year or 10 months, it goes up at some point. So something to look forward to.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Is it true that G.I. Joe comic, like in this period, I imagine it must have been at its peak, it was outselling all the other Marvel titles, like even X-Men? Is that true, or is that like...
I believe so.
That's what I hear.
Wow.
Yeah, because it had the toy,
That
had
is
the
true.
cartoon behind
That's
it.
crazy,
That
isn't
is
it?
true. Yeah. I read that again recently, and someone pointed out that it was, I think when they were talking about the new, is it Skybound run, but they were talking about in the olden times, which is what we're talking about here, that yes, G.I. Joe was in fact for a time Marvel's best-selling, outselling all their
The olden
in-house
times.
books. Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's nuts.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, no, this was G.I. Joe's era because I said they had the G.I. Joe book, they had special missions, they had the Order of Battle going on, the G.I. Joe versus Transformers. They had just started doing the reprints in the G.I. Joe magazine, I think it was called, which was the little digest reprinted 2 issues at a time.
Golden times.
So yeah, so this was G.I. Joe's era. This was when it was really peak, and yeah, this. So yeah, I could imagine especially with all those books out
That's
there, yeah,
awesome.
they had to be outselling everything because that's why they figured, pump out some more books. Well, it's gravy train's running, might as well pump out some
G.I. Joe sleepovers.
So, yeah.
G.I. Joe.
Yeah, and I think it was the time they started. If you guys remember Laser Tag, they had a G.I. Joe laser tag set. They had a G.I. Joe train set. They had G.I. Joe was G.I. Joe coloring books, G.I. Joe color forms, G.I. Joe Viewmaster. In fact, my wife got me one for Christmas a couple years back. We've got sitting on our shelf over here. And Heinz in chat says it was the golden age of G.I. Joe. Yes, it was. So most of it gave it 3.5. Rad's there at 3, but we
I'm bringing the average
Brad.
down as always.
There you go. Heinz says there was puzzles. Yeah, there was all kinds of G.I. Joe stuff at the time. Issue 57. This was called Strange Bedfellows. The cover date was March of 1987. The on-sale date, December the 9th, 1986. Cover price, as we just talked about, 75 cents. The writer was Larry Hama. Penciler, Ron Wagner. Inker, Kim DeMolder. Letterer, Joseph Rusin. Colorist, George Russos. The cover was done by Mike Zeck and Bob McLeod, as someone mentioned a little bit ago.
Zeck.
And the editor of this book was Bob Harris. So the synopsis for this issue: as the Joes explore the Terradrome parts they have, they discover that many of the parts are still a mystery. Having discovered that most of the parts are from Mars, Flint and Lady J join forces with a couple of British soldiers, Jingles and Sergeant Day, raid Castle Destro for the plans for the Terradrome. They arrive to find the real Destro arriving at the compound to find that an imposter is already there. After freeing Destro from the local jail, the 5 of them invade Castle Destro. Destro takes on the imposter, who we find out is Major Blood. And of course, Destro wins. A man of his word, he lets the Joes go and gives them the plans that they came for. That was issue 57. So let's go and get some thoughts on this. I'm going to go in reverse order this time. Dave, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, enjoyable issue. I reread it last night. Look, it's an enjoyable issue. It's fun seeing them in Scotland. It's fun. Destro, I must admit, I chuckled when I reread it because I'd forgotten Destro fighting the Destro, and then his own guys like going, which one's which? He goes, the one who wins and kills the other one will be Destro. Yeah, look, it's an enjoyable issue. It's kind of like an offbeat adventure. I'm not the biggest Lady J fan, but I say that, but I think it's just she's just not one of my favorites because I quite like her in this issue. And yeah, and I definitely like Destro. So for me, it was a very enjoyable issue. And yeah, I mean, there's no weak points. I'm flicking through it now as I'm talking. The reveal, and I'd also forgotten who the reveal was. I was thinking it was Zartan, and then it's who was it? Major Blood. And then I love the end. The problem with making a pact with a pretty lady is that one is obligated to honor it. And Flint's expression in the background while he's kissing Lady J's hand, Flint's like pissed off expression in the background is funny. No, it's a really. I think it's a really strong issue in a very strong era, and there's that little bit of humor, and it's fun seeing the British, representation in a comic like this, and they play them very like it's almost like Biggles. You know what I mean? Like it's very stereotypical, like World War II, stiff upper lip kind of British kind of style. So yeah, no, it's a fun issue. I love it.
Yeah. And Kevin, thoughts on this issue?
So first of all, I got to give a shout out to the Scots here, okay? Because technically we're in Scotland, and I have a good friend of mine who I visited several times, Stevie McLeod and his family, who are diehard Scots. Got to let you know that we're in Scotland here, and I know there's some representation from the UK or the Royal Air Force, I guess is what it is. But I want to show you a little screenshot of where this airport was. This is the Glasgow Prestwick Airport that Destro lands in. And I have a screenshot of the map of Scotland and a little bit of the UK. And you'll see all these stars. Let me go ahead and click that right there. See that? All those little stars are actual places I have visited on my 3 trips to Scotland. And that little red pin drop right there is the airport just outside of Glasgow, Scotland, or Glasgow, as they say right there. So I had to look it up, and it's in southern, kind of southern Scotland area. And I was kind of trying to figure out, like, where was Destro's castle, because there's a lot of castles in Scotland and England in general, but specifically like northern UK, which is northern like England and of course Scotland itself. They're freaking all over the place. It's an amazing place to visit. And if you ever want to visit Scotland, hit me up. I got some wonderful tips for you, and I know people there as well. This is something I appreciated more was this story because of my trip to Scotland a few times, and the lineage, the Scottish lineage that Destro has. Of course, having his own castle is great. I just thought it was kind of funny though that he gets off the plane, incognito, because they make reference to issue 55 where both he and Cobra Commander do their little incognito change, which I know something about. But I love how he goes in the men's room and then he just comes out like, "I'm Destro, bitch, come pick me up." That is. And at first I was like, "That's so stupid. Why would you do?" And I'm like, "Nah, man, bro's Scottish.
Yeah.
He's gonna show it on." And yeah, it's
he's home.
Also one thing I've noticed traveling to Scotland too is that Scots are very proud of their culture and their history. And if you want to genuinely know more about it, ask them about it, because they'd be more than happy to tell you about their history, tell you where to go. And they love talking about their history because they have such a rich history.
So true.
That it's just fascinating to learn it, and the people are fascinating as well. What was that, Brad?
No, I was saying so true. My what do you call it? Descendants are Scottish as well. The Clan McVean, and it's very true. A very rich culture.
Yeah.
Very rich culture.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you want to actually visit the actual Clan MacLeod Castle, which of course you get a little tease of in Highlander,
Mm.
but also is a common name, is you have to go up to Isle of Skye for that, of northern Scotland, to get to the real Castle MacLeod up there. And it's really, really cool. It's got a great history. And, I appreciated this story more. And also, I love the end too, where they work together. They find out, it's Major Blood. I just love him because he's just so smarmy, and I know a little something about that. But I love the throwback to the World War II gliders.
Mm.
These were the gliders that came in before the actual invasion of Normandy on D-Day. They came in the night before to disrupt communications line, to disrupt, bridges and all that kind of stuff, to make it easier for the Allies to make their invasion. Unfortunately, that you learn a little bit about this stuff in Band of Brothers. A lot of these planes didn't make it to their destination for one reason or another. A lot of allies lost their lives with these gliders because the gliders didn't show up on radar. They didn't make noise, but unfortunately, because of the way they were built, they were noticed. They were prone to getting shot by machine guns and cannons and stuff like that. Because they weren't made out of a lot of strong material. They're supposed to be silent, but I love the throwback to that. I thought that was really, really cool.
I've got a question. They
Yeah.
used them in D-Day, yeah?
Yeah, that's what I was talking
Oh,
about.
right,
D-Day.
yeah.
But they were used the night before or the day
Yes,
before
to drop them in.
basically. Yeah, and they had a lot of paratroopers. They were supposed to land, but unfortunately, a lot of them got found out, and a lot of them were shot down, and a lot of them didn't, because of the weather and stuff. It did not. A lot of them weren't successful in landing correctly, but a lot of them did, and those ones that did survive did provide a lot of help for the eventual
Like
D-Day
the ones
invasion
on
the next
Pegasus
day.
Bridge, yeah? Like where they, the movie Longest Day?
Yes.
Yeah, the Pegasus
Yes.
Bridge is that bridge where
Yeah.
they go to. And because weren't they connected to, God, sorry, my memory's so poor, but like they were connected to another plane that would then drop them off, sort of thing? Yeah, right?
Sometimes most of them, like in this, what they did a good job here was recreated. A lot of these were basically towed by some type of vehicle for takeoff first,
Oh,
and then they would glide in and catch them and stuff like that. I think some of them might have been towed in, but
right.
this was it was a really cool kind of throwback to that strategy. And I also like the mention that Destro says most of the parts came from Canada, but my father was one of the subcontractors that built them to last. So I thought that was kind of a cool throwback there as well. And a lot of these gliders are supposed to meet up with some of the French resistance as well.
Yes.
So that was kind of a little history there. But I love the Scottish mention of this, and a little history on Destro himself, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yep, very nice. And
Poor Brad.
yeah, I guess I'll go to Brad. Brad.
Enthusiastically, he jumped.
He knows why I do this.
You know what? I gotta say,
Next issue.
as speaking as a representative of Clan MacFarlane, which is my grandmother's side of the family, out of Loch Lomond, all the things that we all just discussed, that's all kind of my favorite parts of this whole issue.
Hold on. Where in Scotland is that?
Loch Lomond, it's I'm not 100% sure. It's sort of in the Highlands.
Okay.
It's in the Highland area. Yeah, I know my dad. I've not
How is it
been
spelled?
there. It's actually MC Farlane, Farlane, not the way Todd McFarlane.
The Todd father.
Todd is Mac.
It was Loch McFarlane
Yeah.
or Loch something else.
Loch Lomond, Lomand or Lomond.
I'm gonna look it up for you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, this is a really great issue. I this is one of the best issues of this particular era in the comic, if not the entire comic series run. I hadn't read it in years, but as soon as I opened it up, I remembered what I liked so much about it. And usually in reading these books and reviewing these books and talking about these books, I tend to focus more on the writing than the art. But I think that the artwork in this really elevates it. I think Rod Wiggum brings his A game, especially when you're looking at the renderings of the glider and that whole sequence from page 12 on of them invading the castle. Just the way it's laid out, the way it's drawn, the level of detail is just astounding. He's also really great at drawing expressions and faces. And if you move ahead to bottom of page 20 when all of Destro's Iron Grenadiers are standing around trying to decide who do we shoot, and they're like, well, let's see who wins. If the winner is Destro, we know it's Destro. We won. But if you just look at the individual faces, all these guys, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 12 of them. They all are unique. They're all distinctive, and in a weird way, they all look like they're Scottish. And I'm not sure if he just took a look or looked at some photos of people from Scotland, or if he had people in his family or whatnot that had that ancestry, because they all look authentic, especially characters who are focused more on, which is Jingles and Sergeant Day, and they both look. Again, they look authentic. They look like the type of people you'd run into there. And yes, Jingles has a bit of a cliche with the pip pip and what and Biggles and everything, but he's just such a character. I wish we had more of him throughout the series. Like if he would pop in from time to time. Both him and Sergeant Day are just these fun little side characters who this comic does specialize in. I think I don't think Larry gets enough credit for just these little characters who pop up one issue or a couple issues and then that's it. There's always a lot of personality, and I think that there's no such thing as a wasted part or a wasted character. That you should do something fun with them. And I just like that these two guys who are brought in, they're entertaining, but they're not played as comic relief. They're not played as incompetence. They're what you'd want if you're going to a foreign land and you have to meet with your allies in NATO, and you want them to be competent, colorful, and helpful, yes, but very much eyes on the prize, complete the mission, and I just think it's just one of the things that really makes this issue stand out for me. And I also think it's impressive that if you look at what's happening in the broader picture of GI Joe at the time, in which we kind of talked with all the different spin-offs and yearbooks and reprints and everything like that, that this is still very much a contained story. It's almost kind of free of the craziness that the book was starting to delve into at the time with Serpentor and Battle Android Troopers, all that far out stuff. This feels more like a throwback, something that would maybe work in an issue of special missions, because it's just it kind of feels like a special mission story. It's Flint and it's Lady J, and they have to break Destro out of prison and help him reclaim his ancestral castle. And it's just one of those things that moves so quickly. It's such a fast-paced story. There's just they're attacking the castle midway through it, and it's just nothing but action. And it does a really deft job of revealing some background and some backstory to Destro, who, and it's kind of glossed over a little bit, but he's no longer with Cobra. He has ended his affiliation with Cobra, and now he's focusing on establishing his own power base, which we will see in his Iron Grenadiers and the whole Cobra Island Civil War thing, which will be coming down the road. It's sort of a separate antagonistic force alongside Cobra, but he kind of plays both sides of it, which is sort of fun. But I had one nitpick, though, because this is me, and I always have to find something to complain about or just ask questions about, is the reveal that it's...
Okay, now my thought.
Yeah. No. This is a good one. This is a good one. The reveal of Major Blood being the imposter. I thought it kind of did make sense for someone like Zartan to be the master of disguise. And maybe it's played that way just as a fake out that it's supposed to be, we were thinking of Zartan as Blood, because it does answer where he's been these last 20 issues, which is almost 2 years in real life. Because I think the last time we saw him was in issue 38 or something like that. And we're almost 20 issues, almost 2 years down the road from there. And it kind of makes sense that he decide to try and scoop up Destro's ancestral lands, especially when everybody thinks that Destro's dead. But what it doesn't explain, though, is the arm. Did the comic ever establish what the deal with Major Blood's arm was? Because in the cartoon and on the toy, it's like a mechanical arm or something like that. It kind of makes me wonder what happened that we missed.
Yeah, I always thought it was just a special gauntlet that protected his arm from the rocket-firing pistol that he had. Yeah.
My vintage 80s theory was it was kind of like a really souped up Nintendo Power Glove, that it's got the little buttons and the little controllers. So at the end of a day, after terrorizing people, he can do a little NES action, play Duck Hunt or something like that on his Sony Trinitron TV and crack open a cola and just kind of chill, But that was my only thing. That was my only thing. If I thought to write in about a no prize back then and given my explanation, I might have gotten a no prize. So
yeah, I don't think the cover addresses his arm exactly what that is.
So, Brad, I wanted to let you know that I looked up Loch Lomond, and I've forgotten it. I've driven past it twice, and I want to show you a picture
Oh,
So
cool.
there's Glasgow, Scotland, which is the main city there that
Yeah.
you would fly into and get a rental car.
Yeah.
But if you look here, up here
Yeah.
is a main thorough road, A82, and it goes up
Yeah.
right through Loch Lomond, and it's like it's
Yeah.
beautiful, and it's famous for like outdoor recreations and cruises and stuff like that. But there it is, right there. That's where your family's from, and you can't miss it. If you're going to drive up to the Highlands, you're going to drive past that, and it's a beautiful view. I've done it.
Some years back, my father visited Scotland for the first time, and it was like a senior citizens bus tour
Yeah.
type thing. And they went to Loch Lomond, and the local tour guy was showing them around. And here's the cemetery, and here's all this and everything. And she's staring at my dad, like that kind of like, I know you from somewhere. And he looks back at her and he says, I have Scottish ancestry. Can you guess which family? And she looked at him and she goes, You're McFarlane. And he goes, That's right. He goes, The cemetery's full of you lot.
Yep.
So
It's pretty cool.
but she'd look at him and he goes, You're a McFarlane. You're a
Wow.
McFarlane through and through. So
Very nice. And yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. It's a great issue. I again point out nitpicks. I will point out that continuing from I think it was last issue, if you look on page 3, when Destro goes into the bathroom to change, you can tell it looks like he's bald here. But in upcoming issues in like the 90s, that we get a full look at his face, and he's actually got a head of hair. So I don't know if that was a change on Larry's part or if he's supposed to be wearing a bald wig here. I'm not quite sure.
Well, I have a question. Does he have any pull at customs? Because you see him coming out of customs, and he's dressed like he's hiding something. But is he so rich? Does he have someone there going, "Yeah, go on through"? You know, Destro, we know you.
Well, I'm assuming, yeah, he's Lord Destro, so I'm assuming, yeah, he's got people on the page.
Especially if he's going to walk out of it going, "Yeah, I'm me."
Yeah, I mean I think he's probably got people on the payroll because he is Destro, and he comes from there. He's got a long family line. He's Destro.
I've got a question, Aaron.
Yes, sir.
Aaron, you say he's bald, but he's got a hat on, so I guess you could argue that you don't know. Is that right?
Well, to me, and maybe just me, it looks like he's got. If you look at the back, it looks like it's a head.
Yeah.
And in the last issue, when he was getting on the plane, they showed the back of his head. He was bald.
I got a good theory, Aaron. His hair grew back. It doesn't happen for you and me. Your hair and my hair won't grow back, but his hair probably grew back. Maybe he had to shave his head to get the helmet on without pinching hair, like having little stray hairs sticking out of the top of it, you know?
There you go. Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, surely with that helmet on, you got to keep it pretty. With that helmet, you'd have to keep it pretty short at the best of times.
Maybe. But
Yeah. It looks
I
pretty
know later
form-fitting,
on when he wears his helmet, he's got a full head of hair. So I don't know if maybe he shaves. I don't know. Possibly.
I'm just picturing him taking the helmet off and his hair goes up in a huge perm. The second it's released.
It'd be like the worst kind of hat head imaginable. It'd just be like touching one of those balls and just like a giant fro.
Yeah, no, I do like, it's action packed. Like you guys have said, this is kind of like a breather before we start the next round of insanity from G.I. Joe. We start getting some more characters that may not be quite believable, and we'll get into that next issue, Brad. But but no, and I do like, as they're going through, they point out the RFA museum. Spoilers, that's going to come in handy later on. That's not really a museum. It's where we store stuff and da-da-da. Okay, and then later on they go back there to get that plane. Like you guys mentioned, Destro shows up and fake Destro's there with, all the lords and all that. And by Jove, Destro was right. An imposter did show up. And Destro's like, ridiculous. I'm the general article. So I do like, and then later on when they're fighting, like I think it was Brad mentioned, they're like, well, which one's the real Destro? Let's let them fight it out. Whoever wins has to be the real Destro. So very nice. Yeah, no, it was a good issue. It was a good, like I say, a little bit of a palate cleanser. It wraps up, in quotes, wraps up the Destro storyline for now. We don't see him for a little bit, but he'll come back eventually. But it kind of wraps him up and sets him up for later on. And yeah, it answers where I don't know how long Blood's been here, but it answers, where Blood went to and what's going on with Blood. And yeah, I thought it was a little strange too. Yeah, I thought maybe it was going to be Zartan, but I thought it was a little strange it was Major Blood because I don't see him having the acting chops to pull off Destro with his voice and all that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he can sound like a black man too. I don't know. But
He starts sounding like Mel Gibson in Braveheart. He's like, freedom! Freedom!
But yeah. So yeah, unless you guys, and so Kevin, you had something you wanted to talk about in the letter column.
Yes, I do. I always love to pick something out from Postbox the Pit here. And I'm going to read a letter from an Australian fan. And I want to get thoughts on Dave here. It says, Dear G.I. Joe, I live in Australia where boomerangs do come back. I am new to your wonderful comic. I'm trying to read the printing's a little tough on this one here. There is one tiny word I must say, bonza. There are there are many other words to say, but Bonza is best. My favorite characters are Snake Eyes and Cobra Commander. I like characters that have mysterious faces. I've always wanted to know what Snake Eyes' real face looks like and how he had his accident. I have collected some figures, and they don't call them G.I. Joe over here. They call them Action Men. We cannot get the comics in numerical order, and I am disappointed about that. I am looking forward to the battle for Springfield in the giant-sized comic book, even though we might not get it here. I could still try to get regular G.I. Joe comic book and read about it in the Postbox The Pit. It is pretty good living on an island. Sometimes I pretend it's Staten Island, where the pit is hidden, and our service station is the motor pool. Would you be able to tell me what happened to Snake Eyes' face? And also, is it possible to give me the number of the comic in which I can see what he looked like before? Wishing you all the best and good luck with future comics. Yo Joe. From Matthew Pospisil in Brisbane, Queensland. And the post office box, the Pit, replies saying there is no comic where the entirety of Snake Eyes' former face is shown. Matthew, the origin of Snake Eyes is in issues 26 and 27. I just want to say that by saying I thought this was kind of cool because this is from an Australian perspective, especially with the distribution and, of course, calling their figures different names for obvious reason, because you're not going to call them, Real American Hero over there to try to sell them. But also, too, he's from Brisbane, Queensland, which I've been to Australia several times now since my wife's from there. But I made my first trip to Brisbane, Queensland this last April, and I absolutely loved it. I got a dear friend of mine there. We had a lot of fun. But I wanted to ask you, from your memory, Dave, was the circulation as bad like that? Like you wouldn't get them in numerical order? You just get them frequently or whenever?
I have to answer more generally because, total honesty, I certainly wasn't reading G.I. Joe the comic book in the 80s, but I was reading comics in general from Marvel. So I can answer you this, and I guess I'm not in Brisbane, Queensland. I was in Sydney and then I was in Tasmania. I don't remember seeing G.I. Joe comics in your generic news agent where they had all the Marvel comics. Do you know what I mean? In the mid 80s. I don't remember it. That doesn't mean they weren't there.
Right.
Certainly your standard Spider-Man and Hulk and all that were. I also don't remember what he's saying here about it being called. Oh, he's saying the figures were called Action Men. See, I don't remember.
Yes.
What I do remember is I had a close friend in the mid 80s who was real army. He literally went and joined the army in the SAS. Those guys who that's their goal. He was really military focused, and he went on to it. And I remember he told me, I remember this. He said to me, "You should get into G.I. Joe. It's awesome." So the G.I. Joe cartoon was definitely here. That I know. I can't. I don't remember. I don't remember the comic. It would have been there. What he's probably pointing to is it was spotty distribution. Is what I think he's basically saying.
Yeah.
Well, so how was the Marvel books you did pick up, Spider-Man and Hulk and stuff? Were those regular basis?
Yeah, no, they were look, when I got into buying Marvel, which was Iron Man and Hulk and some Spider-Man and stuff. That they were coming out every month, but the distribution was just a bit spottier than it would be now. I wasn't picking them up in a comic book shop originally. I was going to a newsagent and getting them, and they would come in every week. But it was just a bit spotty, one might miss or something, and that's what then led me down to a comic book shop where they did come out. They were stacked on the shelves like they are kind of now. So I think what he might be pointing to is the fact that it might have just it might have been like some months they may not have got it or something. You know what I mean? Like I think that's more what he means. I mean, God, like look, I'm an Aussie too, but like Bonza, I'm sorry, like like I don't know why, but like if there's this, he strikes me as very young, which is fine, but like I can tell you, I've never used the term in my entire life.
Oh, come on, you're lying. You
No,
know you did at
No,
like
I haven't.
11 years old.
No, I wouldn't.
Like, that's Bonza, mate.
No, I wouldn't have done that.
So what did you, give us some Aussie slang that you would have used at that
Look,
time.
I can't remember. We're going back in the 80s. Look, I just wouldn't have used that term. But then again, see, different regions. He's in Queensland. It is a little more, especially back then.
Yeah, Brisbane
area. It's a little more, how can I say, like different, not regional dialects, but different slang. It is, yeah, look, it is very stereotypical Crocodile Dundee kind of talk. Obviously, he used it, so there's no problems with that. But when I read that, my eyes just rolled out of my head. I was just like, fuck me. Like, and unfortunately, I was trying to think about whether on the shelves, because this is the other thing. I was a big Transformers kid. That was what I was buying. But I certainly would have been in the toy aisles, and I'm just trying to remember the G.I. Joes. They certainly had the soldiers, but I'm not sure. When he says they were called Action Men, maybe they were. I mean, I just don't know. We should get Matthew Popsell on the show, and I could grill him about his comments. Because I have some questions, Matthew. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but if I had a letter show up in post office box of Pitt, I'm like photocopying that. I'm like putting it in a frame,
Right.
And I'm reaching out to G.I. Joe podcasts like this and saying that was me.
No, I always wanted to get my letter in 2000 AD, and I never did. But like I sent a couple away because it would be really cool, I think, to get and I love the way it's got the full address as well.
Yeah.
Like it's like, yes, you can track this person down to their house.
By the way, Dave, I think your cat also has an Australian accent.
Yeah, mate. Bonza, mate. I do use mate a lot. I use mate a lot, so it's not like I don't use slang. But Bonza, mate. I mean, it's just very.
All right.
It's very like, is that a knife? This is.
Gotcha. Brad, did you have another question that I did not have?
No, you asked it, and Dave answered it.
I think your cat was saying Bonza.
He was. He's like, Bonza, mate.
Well, yeah, you can tell he's behind because, and this Matthew guy is talking about how he's waiting for the Battle of Springfield. Meanwhile, everyone else is talking about issues 53 and 54. So,
yeah, poor Matthew.
Poor old Matthew. Matthew's just struggling for form.
I did also want to touch on one of the ads in the comic.
No, we can go ahead. No, we're talking about the comic itself. So go ahead and what comic page did you want to talk about?
Yeah. Okay. So, there's a BMX tie-in here that I want to mention to you guys. And so on the back page of the comic, you will see a BMX ad here. Okay. And this is very important, especially here in the States. BMX was taking over as one of the most popular sports, and I got into it as well. And if you know anything about that genre, there's different bikes, and a lot of the bikes sponsored a lot of the big racers. And this is Team Murray teaming up with Jolly Ranchers. It says altogether awesome. It's Jolly Ranchers / Murray, the hot team for 86. Check out the most rad freestyle and BMX racing team going with the big names: Brad Birdwell, NBL National #1, Todd Corbett, NBL National #1, and Kevin Foss and Mark Darnell. Freestylers, intense. Get ready for a good licking. Yes, that's what it says. Murray Bikes. So, if you were sponsored, it was a big deal. And you ask, well, Kevin, why did you bring this up? Well, it's an ad in the back of this particular comic. But I'm going to give a little shout out to this movie in 86 called Rad, a little small film that came out about bike riding. And it starred a lot of the real stars of BMX. And this was actually filmed in, filmed in Canada. And I just recently watched this for a particular reason, for a little self-promotion here at the Fandom Podcast Network. We're doing a Couch Potato Theater where we celebrate our favorite movies. and we're going to be recording this episode of about Rad the movie tomorrow night, actually. And the reason why I bring this up, not just to self-promote, but when you watch this film, the kids go into a local business store, and there's rack of comics behind them. And if you look closely, you will see a G.I. Joe comic on the stands. And I was watching it recently in Atlanta with my friend Kyle, who's my co-host. He podcasts usually from Florida while I podcast from California, but we met up in Atlanta while I was visiting there. And we had to pause it to see, wait a minute, which G.I. Joe that it was. And it was the G.I. Joe issue where it was issue 41, where you see the Battle of Cobra Island, and you see a bandage up Gung Ho with Snake Eyes and Roadblock battling. And I had to pause it to figure it out because all I could see was like the portion of the top of it. But a little trivia, G.I. Joe is represented in the Rad movie, and it's funny that there is a tie into Rad BMX in this issue of G.I. Joe.
That's cool. I remember BMXs were so cool. I definitely had one, and
Redline was the one I wanted. I loved Redline bikes, but I couldn't afford it. So, but I did do. I had like some cheapy bike that I put all the cool like pads and checkered pads and the number plate on them, and wore my Vans. It was great.
Yeah, no, they were a lot of fun. My BMX served me for a lot of years. Let me tell you, it did some miles. That's for sure.
Very nice. And we'll go and move on to the next segment, unless someone has anything else you want to talk about on this issue. Otherwise, we will go to the
The Real American Hero.
And so this is the Joe, Cobra, or whoever else in the book that you want to give a special shout out to that you think has done something fantastic and worth bringing up. We'll go ahead and start in the middle this time. Kevin.
It's tough to go between Jingles and Sergeant Day. I wanted to give a shout out to someone that wasn't, our obvious heroes that you see. And I'm just going to just put them together. It was nice to see. I always like it when Joes work with people from other countries that, assist each other. And I like those guys. I thought it was kind of cool. So I'm just going to give them a duo shout out as my real American hero. But in this case, real UK/Scottish heroes.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. And Brad, who's your real American hero for this issue?
You know what? Once again, Kevin has stolen my thunder because I was going to pick just one. Jingles was going to be my pick. But then I thought about it and I went, oh, this is the only they're going to appear. Why don't we just give it to the dynamic duo from,
That means you and I are like minds.
Definitely Scotland. It's like twins.
Yes.
It's like telepathic twin
exactly.
Corsicans. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to Jingles and Sergeant Day. I think that they're not on very long. They're only in this issue, but they do leave an impression. And I think that as Kevin stated, and I think as I stated earlier, they're kind of what you want in an ally. You want your local color, but ones that can actually do their job and not just make a mess out of everything. And they hold their own.
And this is a reason why we like the October Guard. We like these other people that that work in with G.I. Joe that aren't the G.I. Joe guys that do that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys have that twin connection. So you guys are saying you guys are Tomax.
I picked Toe Jam.
One of you needs the scar so he can.
I'll take a Xanax and fall asleep.
Yeah, come on.
We go ahead and Brad's face. Dave, who's your real American hero for this?
I'm going to be extremely cliched, but I love Destro, so it's just great to see Destro. I like it when Destro is given more of a backstory, and if not sympathetic, you kind of get. He's a bit more nuanced at times. Sometimes he's not nuanced at all, but here I really liked it. So for me, Destro, yeah.
Right. It looks like this issue is divided right down the middle. We have Team Day and Jingles. And then we have Team Destro with me and Dave on that side.
Fine, go with Destro. He's on the cover. Fine.
I mean, he's kind of a given, but kind of the obvious choice, I guess.
He almost got it when he kisses Lady J on the hand.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm like, the day after, I'm just thinking Lady J got some Destro. I'm just saying, because if you look at it, I almost feel like this picture here on the cover is the day after picture.
He's grumpy
because Flint's like pissed. He's like, I know they hooked up last night.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, no, we get some. I see. We like Dave and you guys said earlier. We get some background on Destro. We get some, some character shot of Destro here, and this is kind of Destro's big last hurrah for a little while he reorganizes things in Scotland and reappears later on. But he gets a little bit of a break from this book for a little while. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to Lord Destro also. So very nice choice, guys. The next section is the page of art. This is the page of art that if you could have it, you could have it and blow it up and hang it up on your wall, kind of like Kevin's got it covered there in his background. Brad, we'll start with you this time.
Damn it!
What page of art would you like out of this book? Maybe you can still Kevin's not under this time.
Oh boy, it was this was a toss up, literally so, because 2 pages that are on opposite sides of each other, and they are the middle pages 12 and 13. Page 12 is the 3 panels, the 3 vertical panels side by side of the glider.
Oh, that wasn't what I was going to choose.
Being, I guess, uncoupled from the cable to the next one of it flying over the countryside towards the castle, and Destro at the control stick. That's the one I wanted to pick, but the one next to it is really nice too. So I'm going to flip a coin mentally, and I'm going to go with page 13, just because there's some really great detail in it, and I think it really shows off how exquisitely illustrated this whole book is.
And while I got you up, Kevin.
Okay, I narrowed it down to 3, and I'll make my decision here. But I did want to throw them up, particularly, especially. I'll probably go with this first pick here for obvious reasons. But I thought it was kind of funny. So the one that jumped out to me first was page 8, where disguised Lady J gets into the prison, right? And I thought it starts off kind of funny on the previous page, which is 7, and she's undercover as the little lay sisters of mercy and prison reform, judge not and turn their backs on no miscreant, no matter how dark his deeds. So I thought that was a funny little thing. The lay sisters, isn't that right? Anyway, the next page is this one here, where she reveals herself to Destro, right? And then says, "Get down." So you get Lady J throwing Destro down and gets under mattress. But what I found funny about this page, and it's killing me, is right there on the wall below the bubble. It says, "You're welcome to stay and listen. A dozen of so of the tax are quite well and written." And you see something on the wall that says "was here." So there's someone's name hidden behind the wall there, and I'm like, please say Kilroy. Please say Kilroy. It's at that time, Styx Kilroy was here. Came out in '83, I think. And I'm just like, oh, why is the bubble hiding that? And I just thought that was a really good scene. I have a couple other mentions, but I don't want to steal any thunder. But so I'm going to go ahead with 8, just because I find that funny for so many reasons, and honestly, kind of hot with Lady J. Destro's going like, all right, cool. Yes.
All right, get action now. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned that Kilroy was here. I was saying about that here not too long ago, and I'm on an 80s Facebook group, and I was asking on there, because I remember back in the late 70s and 80s, you saw Kilroy was here everywhere. That was maybe just a local thing. I don't know.
And then the band Styx made a concept album and video of it. So yeah.
Wow.
Right. But Kilroy was here, was all over the place. It seemed, and then it just seemed went away.
You know what? I gotta ask, if Larry Hama did write that, I gotta ask him, like, why? I don't know. Would you ask Zek that, or Larry Hama, like, why? Why did you cover up "was here"? You didn't say who it was.
Yeah, I'm assuming the artist put it on there, so it's probably Zek.
I got questions for Zek. I got so many.
Or no, actually, no, it wasn't Zek. It was Rod Wagner. Zek did the cover. So either Ron Wagner put it on there, or maybe Kim DeMolder, the inker,
who was there?
Put it on there. And then when the letter came in, which is Joseph Rosen, someone went in, and put the word bubble right on top of it. So without, he didn't pay attention when they put the word bubbles on there, because they could have made it a little longer instead of taller, so you could see who it was. But
I think it was a shout out to Kilroy. Maybe they didn't want to be so obvious about it. Well done. That one's my page. Page 8.
Very nice. And Dave, what is your pick?
I was just Googling Kilroy was here. I've never ever heard of it. It was a meme that became popular during World War II, typically seen in graffiti. Yep. I must admit, I've never ever heard of it.
Yeah.
Was it an American thing?
Probably.
I'm
I
assuming.
believe so. Yeah, I don't know. It seems actually no. It was derived from something British, but it was with the soldiers, so it was was a military thing. From the Allies, I guess, when they were busy.
Yeah, and he always showed like a line, which was a wall with a nose coming over
Yes,
with two
that's
eyes.
exactly it.
It said Kilroy was here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bald-headed man with a prominent nose peeking over a wall and his fingers clutching the wall.
I'm just out of the loop. I'm so out of the loop.
So apparently, since we're talking about Kilroy, apparently Mr. Chad or just Chad was the version that became popular in the United Kingdom. The character Chad may have been derived from a British cartoonist in 1938, possibly predating Kilroy was here.
Very cheaply drawn right there.
What's impressive, that's very well done. So it's two, but it was still going, and you guys knew about it in the 70s and 80s. So that's quite long-lived, Think about it. For me, my favourite page is not actually an action page. I just really like the page design of the one where Destro is going in to change his disguise. Because when I was reading that page, when I was reading that, flicked onto that page, I was really struck by the artwork and just how, just think it's done really, I just really like it. I just think it's done really nicely. It's subtle, but I just thought, when I went to read it last time, I was like, gee, that's good artwork.
Good choice.
Yeah. Plus, he looks so badass.
Yeah.
He's like he comes out of the bathroom going, yeah. he's posing,
It's essentially a silent sequence, the entire page. So
yes,
that was my favorite.
Yeah, great choice. In fact, I picked out 3, just have backups, and that was one of my choices. Was page 3 because I do like Kevin said there that Destro comes walking out of the bathroom. He's like, I'm Destro. What you want to do about it? He's just
he's like, I'm Destro.
I'm here. I don't care what you think. I'm home. Pretty much, yeah. That was one of my choices. But I'm going to go for page 21, I think, where Destro and Blood was fighting.
That was one of my choices, too, yeah.
Thank
you. Go.
I wrote down page 21 and then also page 22, the next page where it reveals its Major Blood. And page 3 was my 3 choices. But I'm going to go for the page before
Blood
that.
Blood got his butt kicked.
Yeah. Blood got bloody.
It's interesting. I like the choice that you did because the one before the first choice is I like how these guys are like, you see like, okay, it's a trope. You get the guy in disguise and the real person fighting, But right. I love these guys down here like, the guy says, we wait, obviously, whoever wins this bout of fisticuffs is the real, genuine Destro. And I like the look on their faces. They're just like, okay, which one do we see?
Yeah, no, that was a good choice. That was a good page. There's a lot of good choices in this book.
Good book.
Yeah, there's a lot of good pages to choose from. So very nice. All right. Well, the next thing I'm going to move on to is Postbox the Pit. Again, this is mainly stuff from Facebook and Patreon because I don't do very much on X. And so again, these are people from Facebook that I give a shout out to. Again, I used to read off everyone they either liked or commented or anything, but talking to greater podcaster than me, looking at Kevin, I decided to narrow it down and just
pick the cream of the crop,
Bring,
but just so you know,
crop, yes.
Everyone that does like and comment, we really do appreciate that. Just don't have time to do it everything.
Kevin, yes. Yeah, no, I used to do everything. Yeah, it would take a long time. And Kevin pointed out, I'm sure people fall asleep and tune out. So these are cream of the crop. But yes, thank you anyone that liked or shares or anything at all on the Facebook group.
And the biggest compliment you could do is give money at the end of the day. Like, I always say, like,
there you go.
That's you want to really.
And we'll get to that.
I once had a guy reach out to me with Signal Doom, and he goes, Dave, I really want to help the show. I want to do anything I can, except I can't, support your Patreon. I'm just like, well, okay. So I was just like,
share, like, comment, do all that other stuff.
Hey, he could do all that, but he excluded the one thing that would really have been nice,
Yeah, Patreon helps. But if you like and share, comment, mention it on other pages or whatever, definitely, anything helps.
I commented. I definitely commented. I was like, yeah.
But again, for anyone that we got a couple people out in the chat, looks like I've got 2 people on X and 4 on the YouTube page. If you guys have any thoughts on anything we've talked about, feel free to throw it out there. I'll read it on the air. Postbox the Pit. These are from Facebook. We have Michael Charles Hill. This is the writer of the Cold Slither episode. I talked with him briefly. In fact, I'm going to try to get him on when we get to that episode. So he was posting, I guess, Someone gave him some Cold Slither figures they made.
Oh, I can wear my
and they
Cold
gave it to
Slither
him.
t-shirt. Mhm.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, hopefully things go well and I don't piss him off between now and then. Mr. Hill may be joining us. That's a big if of me, but Mr. Hill may be joining us for that episode. We also have Milo Pantone. He's always posting figures and he's a major commenter on the site.
I love
Don Man Art. He's always posting his 3D prints on the page. He does planned stuff for 3D printing for characters and stuff. Some guy named Kevin Reitzel.
What?
French.
German, dude.
no,
German.
some joker.
Reitzel. The way I said it sounds maybe French. Right? Reitzel.
Hey, by the way, shout out to Heinz Koch up there. He's paying attention.
Yes.
He's putting some comments out there. Good to see you.
Yes, it's always good to hear from Heinz. He's always joining us and always making comments on here. So I appreciate Heinz. Also, used to be on the show, but due to the lawsuits and the restraining orders, he's been away from us. Pat Sampson. He's always commenting and sharing his links, and we miss Pat, but I know he's busy with his own life and his family and
His
his
special
own
mission.
podcasting empire. As I've talked about with me and Jarrod's talked about this. Yeah, Pat's got the same problem I do. Is that he's got a lot of ideas, and it's a. Jarrod was saying that he's like, let's do this show. He's like, we don't have time. Let's slow down.
Easy.
So yeah, so I'm gonna get back to Pat. Lily Cohen. She's always, I'm assuming it's she, is always posting links to Hasbro's new Joe stuff whenever they have their Hasbro streams and we start linking new things. She's always posting on the group. Thank you very much. And my last one on here for the Facebooks and also YouTube is Heinz Koch, as he's always joining us and always, throwing out, he's throwing out some thoughts as we talk on here. So appreciate you, Heinz. Thank you very much. Moving over to Patreon, we have Bill Bear, Gene Hendricks, and our big donor, Big Danny Cool. Again, those are all people that's supporting us. There's some other ones that just on the free level, but these are the ones that are paying members. I appreciate you guys. Every little bit helps. Not enough yet for me to retire and do this full time, but maybe eventually. Oh, but no, again, you can join us over on patreon.com/headcastnetwork. And if you want to join us on Facebook, it's facebook.com/GI Joe. Feel free to join us. And then we're going to move on to the Soldier of the Month. This is someone that's done something great for the show or for GI Joe or something that, that sent me something or whatever it may be. This month, I'm going to give a shout out, and the Soldier of the Month goes to Joshua McGuire. He is on our GI Joe role-playing game we do, which I'm going to be starting back up as another podcast. Long story short, maybe, as you guys, if you may know, we were doing the GI Joe role-playing game, and I was releasing those as episodes. Due to life, we stopped that back in December of last year, and our game master, Eric, invited me and one other guy to join back up when he got going back up. And somewhere along the way, someone that wasn't invited back onto the group apparently went through and deleted the Discord channel. Not the channel, but all the sub channels, whatever on it. They deleted everything on it. So
Sabotage.
Yes, he went through and he got upset for either one of two reasons. Either A, he's a Trump fan and he was upset that some of us were posting anti-Trump stuff, or B, he was upset that he wasn't asked to join us on the game. One of the two. We're not quite sure which.
To kill him? Are we going to kill him? That's fair enough.
Maybe. I don't want to say it online. But it's funny. It happened the day we'd been playing for a month or so before anything happened. It was like the day after Trump's conviction, and we posted some things on the next day. Yeah.
Wow.
Everything was deleted. So, but Josh stepped up and redid everything for us, got everything back together, and got us back and running really quick. So appreciate you, Josh. Thank you very much, Josh.
Go, Josh, go.
Yeah, go, Josh. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I'm such a fan. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. I like my technical ability. I struggle with Discord. We're recording it, and I swear to God, it's almost the limit of my abilities. Like, I'm on these Discord things that it pops up on my phone all the time, and I'm like, I never interact with these groups that I'm on ever, and it's like just constantly updating. I'd like to delete it, actually.
Yeah.
You're doing better than me, though, Dave. People send me invites to these things, and I never bother downloading the Discord software. I'll get on that eventually.
You know what? You're not missing much, other than Aaron's thing and Aaron's Trump stuff, apparently.
Hey, I try to mention too much on the show because, again, I don't want to annihilate anybody. Annihilate? That's not the right word. Alienate anybody. That's what I was looking
Alienate.
for. But anyways, getting back on track, thank you very much, Joshua McGuire, and to our Soldier of the Month, all of us here at the G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, and at the Headcast Network Studio, we salute you. So, that was the Soldier of the Month. That's Postbox the Pit. We talked about the comic book, page of art, and the Real American Hero. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the last part of the show.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages.
Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr. If you're a history lover or a musical lover, you probably know about both Hamilton and Burr's rise to power in the early stages of American history and their infamous duel. But what if you didn't know the full story? What if one of them was a werewolf? White Rocket Entertainment proudly presents a 48-page full-color comic book, Hamilton vs. Burr, A Werewolf Tale. Written by Jarrod Ulbrich, the yard sale artist, art by Nate Niles, colors by Ace Wheely and Ken Solomon, letters by Percival Constantine, and edited by Johanna Ulbrich. Hamilton vs. Burr, A Werewolf Tale. Available digitally on Kindle and Comics Central, COMIX Central. Prefer a print copy? Hamilton vs. Burr, A Werewolf Tale, along with my other published works, are available at theyardsaleartist.bigcartel.com. That's theyardsaleartist.bigcartel.com. Or you can buy it directly from me, creator Jarrod Ulbrich, the yard sale artist, at any of my Comic-Con appearances. Hamilton vs. Burr, A Werewolf Tale. Get your copy today. You won't regret it. Don't take my word for it. Here's what Ming Chen from AMC's TV series Comic Book Men had to say about it.
I really enjoyed it. A lot of great werewolf scenes in here. A lot of great... this is how I wish history would be told to kids. Books like Hamilton vs. Burr, A Werewolf Tale.
That's Hamilton vs. Burr, A Werewolf Tale.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blood of Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
To tell you the story of Green Lantern is to tell you the story of the birth of a universe, the origins of DC as a whole.
It's a magic emerald meteor from space in the 1940s.
It's the establishment of the JSA.
It's the birth of the Silver Age.
It's the introduction of a universal police force.
It's the formation of the JLA.
It's the emergence of the multiverse.
It's a crisis in both space and time.
It's an emerald dawn.
And it's an emerald twilight.
It's the brightest day.
And the blackest night.
And the Lantern cast covers all of this and everything in between. We're Green Lantern's greatest advocates and fiercest critics. We've been fans for years, and it's the reason we're self-proclaimed Lanternologists.
So find us on iTunes and Stitcher and give us a listen. because the history of Green Lantern really is the history of the DC Universe. And we've got the interviews, commentaries, reviews, and more to back it up.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
And check out those promos I play, those shows. I'm sure I played some very good promos in there. Let's go
Rockford
ahead
Files
and,
will return.
let's move on. Let's move on to the next segment.
Yo, Joe!
He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe is there. It's G.I. Joe against Cobra, the enemy, fighting to save the day. He never gives up. He's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe is there.
G.I. Joe is the code name for America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force. Its purpose, to defend human freedom against Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
He never gives up, he'll stay till the fight's won. G.I. Joe will dare. G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe.
So that is G.I. Joe the cartoon. This month, we're looking at the episode entitled Hearts and Cannons. This was directed by John Gibbs and Terry Lennon. I was looking through, they did quite a bit of directing on these episodes. It was written by Larry Houston with a story by Alfred A. Pegel and Larry Houston. First aired November the 14th, 1985. The synopsis: while looking for a Cobra weapons range, the Joe's jet is hit by lightning, disabling two of the engines. Footloose and Dusty parachute. David just laughs. Footloose and Dusty parachute out over the desert and free a captured scientist and help a group of natives against the evil forces of Cobra. That is G.I. Joe, Hearts and Cannons.
I have a little side note to that real quick. The Now You Know segment. I found out segment attached to this episode involved barbecue telling kids to not pull the fire alarms.
Yes, and I'll be playing
That's
that.
funny. It's very specific.
We were tempted, that's how we got out of stuff,
Yeah.
I remember that one, but the really funny thing about that one is even the kids are like, "What is up with your accent? Are you supposed to be a leprechaun?"
For that one, stay tuned after the show, kids. We'll be playing that one at the end of today's show. So, Brad.
Oh gosh, I'm in the hot seat again.
You're in the hot seat. You got some thoughts.
That's good because I'm going to get my one critique of this episode out of the way, and it's just one, and it's the title of the episode. Was Hearts and Minds not available? Because it's right there. It is right there. Hearts and M-I-N-E-S.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah. If you know the play on the title, it's supposed to be that. So that's the only thing that's the one thing that popped into my head off the top. I'm like, someone should have called it Hearts and Minds. I can't believe no.
Good call out there, Brad.
Said, hey, how about this? Or maybe it was just too close to the original context of the era. They thought, we might get killed for that.
But canon was a big deal, though. That's why they went with Hearts and Cannon.
Yeah.
yes, but that's a minor quibble. To me, it'll always be Hearts and Minds. But I gotta say, overall, I thought this was an excellent episode. This is probably one of the best ones they've done because I think it's because it's a smaller one. I think that's always kind of a good thing in a way. I really like the what we call an in media res opening, where we're already in the thick of it, where plane is is in trouble and they need to dump stuff, and Footloose and Dusty just bail out and say, we'll lighten the load and we'll take care of it later. And I gotta say, I really liked Footloose in this particular episode, maybe because I don't remember his characterization that much from the show, but him being this total California space case guy really worked. Yes. And he kind of tracked as some guy who got in a bit of trouble when he was younger. He smoked a lot of weed and then was given a choice between going to the army or going to jail. Option the judge presented him, chose the army. And both him and Dusty, these are kind of like the B-roll Joes. They're not Duke or Snake Eyes or Scarlet or any of the ones that people really remember. It's Footloose and Dusty, but Dusty in the desert for a change. Not in the Arctic, not underwater. I know sometimes
Yes.
with the cartoon they kind of throw random Joes in because they have to sell toys, but actually having Dusty in the desert for a change really worked. And I really appreciate having, ironically, Destro and Major Blood leading the Cobra contingent for a change. This is at a time when there are more flashy characters out there on the Cobra side, but having these two OG villains working together and working against each other was a lot of fun, especially for someone who really got into GI Joe around the time that those characters were introduced. In the story, we have a defined objection. You got a pretty lady scientist, you got a freedom fighter, and just an overall really fun, fast-paced episode. And I think one thing we really have to give credit to the cartoon is that it always moves. It doesn't get dull ever. And even in an episode you don't necessarily care for, it's still a lot of fun. And really, after having Egyptian gods and dinosaurs, it's nice just to have a grounded, for GI Joe at least, episode that doesn't rely on magic or ancient realms or ghosts. And kind of like issue 57, it feels like a bit of a palate cleanser amidst all the other crazy stuff that they had going on. There's one funny little or just a question is, I thought it was really clever having Cobra Commander's voice be the voice of the
Yes.
security snake scanner, because I can picture him in a recording booth doing B-roll for all these security devices, going, how many more of these things do I have to do? I have other things to do. I got to record these lines.
How many more of these things do I have to do? Come on.
And see, I noticed that too. I was wondering, is that just happened to sound like Cobra Commander, or is that supposed to actually be Cobra Commander sat down and recorded these?
Oh, you know that's Cobra Commander
things?
sitting down and doing that. Come on. That's vanity right there.
That's what I was wondering. I can see that's Chris Latta, but yeah, I was wondering, is it the Cobra Commander? You know what? The hell with it. I'm using my voice. I'm gonna sit there and record all these. The hell with
Attention
y'all.
to detail.
Yeah. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. It's supposed to sound this. Although, Cobra is all about the branding, though. They have
Yes.
they have the Cobra battle cry.
Yes.
That's the other thing I wanted to mention. Destro is always supposed to be like the sober second thought, the more sensible one. Yet we have him. He orders the troops into a minefield, which is a very Cobra Commander maneuver.
Yes.
I was watching it this morning and I actually laughed out loud at the half-hearted Cobra battle cry.
Very
Drive into the minefield and blow themselves up. Yeah, and I'm sure they the minefield, they blow up. I'm sure they all survive, but it was like so that I'm pretty sure they all survive. But just overall, I'll end it here. But just a really fun episode, and I think it complements the issue well. And just when this cartoon was on, it was on, and same as the comic. When the comic was hitting all the right buttons, it was spectacular to behold.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yes. And let's go ahead and move over to our Australian friend,
Yeah.
Dave. Thoughts on this
It was a good
episode?
episode. First time for me that I'd seen this one. Watched it last night with Michelle. We were laughing at Footloose because Michelle's like, "Well, that sounds like Mikey from the Turtles," and I was like, "Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure what Joe it was." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not even sure who it is." And then they said Footloose, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, he was the one who was like the space cadet guy." But he did sound a lot like Mikey from the Turtles. And of course, I knew who Dusty was. I know Dusty more from his design, so it was fun seeing him there. But yeah, I just thought it was a neat little episode. Like good stuff with the tank, good opening too, where it's got Lady J and is it Flint, and they're in the tank. They have to drop stuff out, so they drop out the mauler first, and then et cetera, et cetera. I thought it was a really good opening. And just a fun episode, fun ending too, with the guy who comes in and then he thinks they're Cobra, and he's at the start, and then he comes in and he cuts off their whatever you call it, their restraints. Yeah, look, just a good episode, and it was hilarious seeing the half-hearted Cobra battle cry. That was good, actually. I enjoyed that part. That made me laugh a couple of times. The episode made me kind of chuckle, but in a good way. Like it was like, this is good stuff. So yeah, excellent episode.
And I was just looking online trying to see if that was the same character that did, but I'm being directed wrong. So we'll go and move on to Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Got some notes here.
You've got
some
notes.
of them have already been mentioned. So we start off with Major Blood and the Cobras attacked and kidnapped 140 people. Trying to figure out from what country and what happened to these people. Did they getaway, or are they part of the people at the end that are like celebrating? Some kind of question about. So in the beginning, we get the Joe team in the plane. We get Footloose with the Mauler tank, Wild Bill, Flint, and Covergirl, and Dusty in the plane. Wild Bill, one of the most underrated, coolest Joes ever. I always liked. Obviously, he flew the Dragonfly, but I love the fact that he was like a Western guy. He had the 2 6 guns with the ammo belt and everything. I just thought that was so cool. Okay, so Brad mentioned that Footloose sounded like a what did you say? California what?
I called him a like a total California space case who smoked a lot of weed.
Okay, I take umbrage to that, but it's accurate. I got the more of and good call out, by the way. That sounded like was it Mikey, one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Now, being from Southern California, he sounded like a cross between a surfer guy and a valley girl, basically. And that is the way they talked back in those days. And I'm going to be mentioning some of the lines, especially like this one. We're jumping, come on, dude, into the ozone.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that the Mauler gets ejected. Dusty is the snorer of these, and I like that Dusty's in his natural habitat, and that the scorpion, he's like treating the scorpion as a pet, and you see the scorpion like take one little like jab at him with his tail on his boot. But what did we learn from Indiana Jones 4? Bigger the scorpion, lesser the venom. You have to worry about the smaller ones. So Destro's with Dr. Winters, and they're talking about this plasma cannon. And I thought it was funny that Dr. Winters tried to punch a metal mask, but when you watch it closely, she doesn't really make contact. A side note, Dr. Winters, hot?
Yeah.
And I got to say that Cobra tank that Blood was in first, and then, of course, later on, Destro, pretty darn cool looking, I got to say. I love that big, thick, round turret. Would have loved a toy of that. And I love the Dusty / sand camo trick to jump, to basically trick that one Cobra. Very Rambo-ish from Rambo 2 when he's hiding in the mud. Thought that was kind of cool.
Yes.
And you brought this up, Brad. I love the snake serpent ID security kiosk with Cobra Commander's voice. I want that for my front door. That would be really cool. And you put your hand in there, and it says the voice. And I love it when Footloose and Dusty are trying to rescue, and Footloose goes, "There she is, the chick," referring to Dr. Winters. And then, of course, Dusty comes in first, saying, "Think of me as your hero." And then Footloose pushes Dusty to the ground and says, "Super suave, man. Hey, throwing on something casual because you're like getting rescued." More on him later. And I thought it was pretty cool, the funny window escape. I thought that was pretty cool. And then as they're escaping, Footloose says, "No problem, just keep mellow, miss. All right, I'm Dr. Footloose, and that's Dusty over there. He's an intern." And we're like, G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Just look on his face when he says that, too. We're like, G.I. Joe.
For the record, I am not making fun of Footloose right now. I am thoroughly entertained by him. The automated Cobra laser cannons, by the way, sounded a lot like the original Battlestar Galactica lasers. I just want to say, I think that was just like a go-to laser sound in the Foley's here.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Also, too, I'd like in addition to the Cobra security kiosk, I would like the Cobra Death Zone light up sign, talking booby trap. I would love to have that and the light up mines for my front lawn for Halloween. Just saying, it would be so cool. And I like the fact that during the mine scene, to get her foot off of it, you could tell that Footloose saw Raiders of the Lost Ark by trying to, put something heavy on the mine before it explodes. And I really love those G.I. Joe and Cobra laser rifles. I used to not like them at all, especially when I had the action figures that usually had more realistic weapons. But nostalgia has kicked in over the last 20 years, guys. I would love like some 3D, like I would love those if they release those as a toy. I think that's so cool. I love the fact that Dusty is shown, as they say, slapping in a new clip of his Cobra.
You just like a laser gun to walk around with, just blazing.
Oh, well, I would totally do that. I would love to like get since being part of the Finest, I'd do like a Cobra Trooper, but have that laser rifle instead of like the AK-47s that you see a lot of them do. I just think that's so cool.
Sure.
And as you guys mentioned, the less enthusiastic Cobra yell when forced in the minefield, Cobra. Cobra. Dusty says, you got to feel bad for those guys because, they're being forced into the minefield by Destro. And the Footloose says, no way, man. They're just like living out their karma. And I love the fact that Dusty takes out 2 Cobra Rattlers in his home environment, too, and he steals a Cobra ride, which I thought was
Yes.
And when Dr. Winters and I think it's Footloose, they get captured by Jabal. What was that Dr. Winters scream? It sounded like a leopard or a panther. Did you notice that? Like, what the?
She's a cougar.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then, of course, Jabal, of course, it turns out to be an ally when he realizes who they are, and they're reunited with the Mauler. Toy push. Come on, guys. Buy the Mauler.
Yep.
Buy the Mauler. Jabal sounded like the voice actor that did Duke. I thought that was kind of funny. I love the Trouble Bubble Patrol. Shout out to you there, Aaron. I know you like your Trouble Bubbles.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And damn, Winters takes out 2 Trouble Bubbles with one shot. That was pretty cool. And Nancy Winters, the flirt, hot.
Yes.
To say that. And I love that when Destro's leading the charge, he goes, idiots, forward! Tank on tank battle. This was very cool. It reminded me of the movie Fury with Brad Pitt a little bit. I love it when Destro gets shot from behind and the tank just flips like a toy. It almost like it not only did it like hurt it, but it like tickled it to death. And it just like, oh no, and it flips over. And then of course we get Flint, Cover Girl, Wild Bill, Roadblock to the rescue? ? Didn't need to. But I gotta ask you guys, who did Nancy wink to? Was it Footloose or was it Dusty? Or was it both? Was she kind of like going, hey guys? And then like my last line was, Nancy getting some Jabals tonight?
That's good.
To sum up, this was a very fun episode. It kind of felt like a lot of what Brad was saying earlier. It also felt like, one of those special missions. I love it when you get the B team guys having an adventure and you get right into it. And I fell in love with Footloose. Yes, I'm from California. Yes, I heard a lot of people, meeting myself back in the mid 80s talking like that. And if you watch some old movies, like search out Under the Boardwalk. It's a hard to find film, but it came out and it was about surfer life. And it was very, very funny. But the way the surfers talked back in those days reminded me a lot of how Footloose did. And I fell in love with Footloose. He's one of my new favorite Joes because of this episode.
Very nice. And before I get started on my notes, I was curious if so Footloose was voiced by a gentleman named Will Ryan, who unfortunately passed away in 2021. It looks like, according to IMDb, he did not do Mikey of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was somebody else. It was different. I was wondering about that because a lot of times they do.
Yeah, it's more of the cadence and the style that they're talking. That kind of surfer skater dude thing.
Yeah, but this gentleman did do a lot of voiceover work. He did some both Rabbit and who was it? Tigger.
I'm a Tigger. I can bounce.
Yeah, he did. Awesome. He did voices for them. He did for anyone that's familiar with Mickey's Christmas Carol. He did the voice of Ghost of Christmas Present.
He was the voice of Petrie in The Land Before Time. Little
He was Willie the Giant. Yeah. So he's done a lot. He was in the Wuzzles as a Wishing Well. He did a lot of voiceover work. My Little Pony did additional voices for Digit and American Tail. Frog and Toad Together. He did the voice of Frog. So he did a lot of voiceover work. So
now he's in that big voice, cast in the sky.
Yes. So my thoughts on this. I love that Dusty and Footloose just happen across the Cobra testing site as they're looking for it. As we've talked about previously, another captured scientist being forced to help Cobra. Because again, Cobra can only get the only science they have working for them are Dr. Lucifer and whatever that evil female one was.
Can Hasbro release like a figure set of all the captured?
All the hostages.
Scientists. A hostage set.
And you could have Dr. Mindbender as their guard. You know what I mean?
But you have to have a Baroness and a Scarlet in disguise so you can pop their heads off and put on their names.
There you go. Well, we're supposedly we're getting the once a man Cobra Commander figure, so anything's possible. So and as you mentioned, I think it was Kevin mentioned the scene of Dusty coming up from under the sand. I love that. Thought that was fantastic. It seems that the walls in the Cobra compound are bulletproof. when they're freeing the doctors and the soldiers come running in, shooting their laser guns. It's not making any holes in the wall. Thought that was interesting. Someone else mentioned, Dr. Winters, and Footloose says, the whole I'm Dr. Footloose, and that's Dusty. He's just an intern. I laughed at that. Dr. Winters steps on the landmine, and Footloose, he has to sit down and meditate to think of a way out of it. He's like, you got to sit down and meditate, man. It was hilarious. Destro refusing to turn off the death zone. Classic Cobra Commander move. Definitely. My next note on here, just 2 words: trouble, bubbles.
Yeah.
Love them. Sound must really carry you in the desert. Destro heard Nancy, Dr. Winters, talking from a fair distance away when they were coming up on him. And my last note on here, and this is why Cobra always loses, the troopers, they have these guns, and they ran away from a dude on a camel with a sword.
Idiots, forward.
Dude walks up with just a sword on a camel, and we gotta get out of here. You guys have guns, shoot them. Yeah, no, it was a good. Like I say, it was one of the better episodes. Even the bad ones we liked, but this was definitely not one of the bad ones. So definitely a good time. I enjoyed this.
So you guys didn't answer my question. Who did Nancy wink to? Dusty, Footloose, or both?
Yeah,
I think it was both.
I think she was flirting with both a little bit, throwing a few breadcrumbs.
I think she had some sand in her eye, and she was trying to get it out, and they were both inferring she's winking him because it was the desert after all.
Point.
Possibly. There, maybe Jabals was standing off screen and she was winking at him.
Jabals?
Jabals. Anyways, quickly moving on. But yes, Jabals. So, any other thoughts on the cartoon or comic or anything else? Brad, your final thoughts?
You know what? I think both this issue and this episode kind of represent why we keep coming back and doing this, is because there's some really great stories in here. Some of them some of them if you've read the comic over and over enough times, you know when the really good ones are coming up.
Right.
I don't know if there's as much, let's say, memory retention with the cartoon. They all kind of blend together for me, at least. But this one really sort of snuck up on me and surprised me and reminded me why I still love G.I. Joe and all its incarnations for going on 40 years now, that this has been a part of my life at least. And I just want to make a little quick plug that I started reading the Skybound Energon universe of books, the Duke miniseries, the Cobra Commander series, and the Transformers one. And I got to say, if you're an old school G.I. Joe and Transformers fan, that they are well worth your time. I
second that. Them. Yeah, big time.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Excellent.
And they've announced that they're coming out with the G.I. Joe proper series coming out soon.
Right.
So,
and I will say, Brad, if you're not reading it, the Scarlet one is good too. That's just come out.
Yeah, I'm a person who waits for the trades to come out typically, so I'll have to catch up onto it when it comes out. The other thing I wanted to add about it is, interestingly, is not only have they been nominated for a whole slew of awards, but apparently they're all selling huge numbers, like outselling a lot of Marvel and DC stuff. Like there was a huge audience for this kind of thing, and this is the Skybound, their Energon universe, where they're kind of taking Transformers and G.I. Joe and having them cross over. And it's one of those things that I normally
That's what's supposed to do with like the next movie. I think with Transformers are really going to bring in this thing.
Yeah. And I've never been a fan of Transformers and G.I. Joe crossing over into the same universe, but in this case they actually made it work really well. So I'm looking forward to seeing it continue, and I hope it kind of brings some new fans aboard to read the comic, buy the 100%. Toy, listen to this podcast, and just kind of join what I think is the best fandom community to be found anywhere, and that's the G.I. Joe one. And I'm not just being silly when I say that. I legitimately feel like G.I. Joe fandom is comprised of the best.
Well, I'm here. I'm here, so I
agree.
And the Megaforce fandom. Megaforce fandom is Megaforce fandom understands that deeds, not words, are what counts.
Megaforce.
And I agree with Brad and Kevin that I'm not a fan of the G.I. Joe Transformers crossing over usually, but I'm enjoying what they're doing.
Well, what's funny is it would be very funny in an ironic way is if they do the crossover, but they actually get G.I. Joe right in the Transformers crossover, because we've had the problem of them not getting G.I. Joe 100% right. You know,
I've read somewhere there's only supposed to be a couple of Joes in the next Transformers movie, the big crossover one. There's only supposed to be a couple of Joe shows. What I read somewhere, but we'll see.
A small number, yeah.
Less is more. I just want to really echo Brad's comments. The comic books that they're doing through Skybound really are excellent. And I think that Duke series and that Cobra Commander series are great. So far, there's only been one issue of Destro. It was excellent. I do agree, waiting for the trade's probably the best thing. The Duke one especially reads so well as a trade. I think it's some of Joshua Williamson's best work, honestly, that he's done. So, yeah,
Very
thoroughly seconding Brad's comments.
I agree, and I think that's what sort of happens is you have these writers and these creators who grew up with GI Joe or Transformers or whatever, and they always said, "Oh, I'd love to do something in that universe," and then they're given a chance to do that, and they really just run with it. And while we all like and respect and admire Larry Hama for his contributions, essentially creating GI Joe, it's always fun to see other people kind of who are inspired by his work sort of dip their toes into the pool and
oh, definitely.
And kind of do things. And I mean, it's just been a real surprise. It's been one of my most pleasant reading experiences this year, at least. So I'm
glad to hear.
Stick with it.
I like the Skybound's doing their own thing with it. They've got their own, they've combined it and they're doing their own GI Joe and Transformers, but they've still got the Larry Hama book out there for those that are fans of the original Real American Hero. That's still going, and so
everybody wins as far as I'm concerned. With that strategy, yeah.
Yes, win-win, definitely. And Kevin, any other thoughts on either the comic or cartoon or anything else?
I'm excited to kind of see or be remembered of this next few arcs of what happens with these G.I. Joe characters, because I know that there's arcs that are better than others, but I'm very curious because I can look at the covers all right now and be reminded a little bit, but there's all these little details I've forgotten. And what I like about doing the show with you is that I forget about it until I do the show. I mean, what I mean is I've forgotten a lot about these details until I do the show. And it's like reading the comics again for the first time.
Right.
And I don't go ahead and read this stuff. I wait till you do the show, and it's like discovering it again. And I really enjoy doing that and sharing it with you guys here.
Oh, and I enjoy hearing your guys' thoughts. And yeah, same way. I haven't reread these in a while. So yeah, I'm rereading these fresh for, first time in a while. But yeah, I know a lot of people think maybe this is where it starts to get a little goofy. Look at you, Brad. But I enjoy these. Again, part of it is, as I've said before, next issue is my first issue of G.I. Joe that got me into the comic. So I love a lot of those characters. It's nostalgic factor, a lot of that. And I will admit it, but
You know what? I've been reading through the classic collection. I just finished issue 100 last night. So I've made it that far. So I think I've done a pretty good effort.
Very nice. Oh, yeah. Very nice. And then in the next couple of cartoons is pretty good. We have Memories of Mara and then The Trader 2-part, which are a couple of my favorites. So these next couple months should be really good. But yeah, definitely I'm enjoying, the cartoon, the comic. I'm enjoying reading it all. For the most part, like I said, I've enjoyed G.I. Joe up through the early 100s, and then it gets a little bit of we'll see when I get back up there again. But
who backed the compendium? I did.
I don't have that kind of money. If I had, I would.
Yeah, I didn't because it's too big.
Yeah.
I don't know where to put it.
Yeah.
And I don't, each spine is so huge. I'm glad they have everything in there, but I'd almost like, let me buy a digital version.
Well, I know where it's going in mine. It's going in my office, and it's going to be up on the shelf, and I'm looking forward to it. So, yeah.
Yes. I have a digital version also.
That's cool. PDFs,
Not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I had the money, I would. Again, it'd be hard to read because it's so thin.
Yeah.
But if I had that,
I didn't back it just because, and this is a humble brag, I have issues anyway, so I don't necessarily need them combined into one big book. Plus, I spent way too much money on this.
I understand.
Omnibus. That you see at the back. I spent and that's massive. Like in order to read it, I have to clear off the coffee table, and I have to put it on the coffee table and turn the pages. It's so huge. So I don't have any room for any more GI.
And the compendiums, they're 4 books that are about 1,100 pages each. 4 of them.
Yeah.
Each book has like 50 issues or so in it. And it covers it. It covers every. It's got the special missions,
everything
in it. So it's definitely.
I did hear though that it does not include the first issue of the Order of Battle because that had the Rocky Balboa in it. I had heard that it was going to be missing something.
I thought it had that.
Maybe it's just that page.
I know it's missing the the first annual because that was the stories in there was reprints.
I think they then said they
Okay,
added
maybe I was
it in.
confusing it with the
I
annual.
believe. Yes.
Oh, did
look,
they?
Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I read someone said that. I don't know if that's true
Right.
or not.
Yeah, when I was looking into it, yeah, it said that was missing, and a lot of people were talking about it. There's some pinups and some other stuff they could have included.
I think
but...
I still think it's gonna be pretty good. I'm looking forward to it. Like, you know.
Oh no, yeah, like I said, if I had that kind of money, I would definitely would have
hit.
backed it myself. But
I took
I
a
just don't
hit.
have
I
a
took
kind
a
of
hit. I
cash
also
lying
got
around.
Snake Eyes Alpha Commando. I sent it to you, with Timber.
Yes,
Yeah.
very nice. That was nice. So, Brad, if we want to hear more about you and read your writings, which I enjoy myself, where can they go?
They can and should go to bradabraham.com because this summer I am writing another installment or 3 installments of my Celluloid Heroes series where I take a look back on movies from my life that meant a lot to me. I just posted a long write-up about Batman, Tim Burton's Batman, which came out 35 years ago this summer. And that's up there right now. And then the July entry will be about RoboCop 2, and the August one will be about natural born killers. And I kind of look at the films in kind of historical, cultural context, but also really focus on the experience of seeing them in the theater for the first time. All these movies that I've written about, and they're actually being compiled into a nonfiction book that I've been working on for what seems like forever. And it's about the experience of going to the movies and seeing them in the theater when they were brand new, before you knew what you were really getting into. So it's going to be running all summer. So check back on a monthly basis, and you'll see a new installment. And
Natural Born Killers is a stone cold classic, man. It's crazy.
It is the most 90s movie ever made.
Remember Robert
Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr.
No, it is.
Where
It
the
just-
shit went down in Grenada.
Yeah.
And he was doing an Aussie accent. I remember
He was doing an Aussie accent.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
the movie, but it is a deeply disturbing film.
Yes,
it is. It is.
I was going to say, Brad, I do like on your background, you've got the hooded Cobra Commander over your right shoulder there.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah, I love. Yeah, you've been talking. I can see him on your right shoulder. I love that. Fantastic.
Rock on.
So,
and I feel old. 35 years since Batman. Jesus, that's sad. That's sad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was horrified when
cool.
I read that, and I'm like, oh dear. I'm gonna have to put
That
up
almost
there.
hurts. I'm like, oh no, really? That long?
Almost as much as my knees.
Yeah, I hear you, Kevin. If people want to hear more from you, Raider Nerd, where can they go?
Yeah, you can find me on pretty much all social media, whether it's X, Instagram, Discord, Letterbox, Threads. You can find me at Spartan_Phoenix and the Fandom Podcast Network. Check out our network for podcast. We got a little bit of everything. We got Star Wars, Star Trek podcast, Doctor Who, Highlander, which is one of the ones that Highlander Blood of Kings, one of the ones that I also host, and some of our favorites. We got Couch Potato Theater, which I mentioned earlier. We're going to be celebrating Rad coming up soon on where we celebrate our favorite movies on Couch Potato Theater, and also Time Warp, where we look back on an entire year of movies, and it's monthly. There's 12 months in a year, of course, and we're celebrating the year of 1984 because as of this recording in 2024, everything is 40 years old. And also, we're going to be celebrating in July of 2024, which starts tomorrow as of this recording. It's going to be Deadpool month.
Cool.
We're going to be celebrating the first film. Here's a cool slipcover I have, a holiday slipcover over the original Blu-ray of Deadpool 2016. We're going to be re-releasing that podcast that we did, and then we're going to be doing a brand new one of Deadpool 2, and then we're going to have a reaction show the Sunday after the release of the new film Deadpool and Wolverine. I bought 2 tickets for opening preview night on Thursday. I'm going to go be seeing it in 3D, and then I'm going to be seeing it a few hours later on IMAX. And we're going to be giving a full spoiler review of Deadpool Wolverine with my fellow nerds, Kyle, and hopefully a few others as well. So make sure you check out the Fandom Podcast Network.
Wow, this is
Very nice. And David Finn.
Oh, me. Well, Kevin's professionalism with all this stuff puts me to shame. Is this a full-time job for you, Kevin? Because Jesus Christ, you seem busy.
Yeah, it feels like it.
God, like any moment of your life not recorded. Look, once you're done with Kevin's empire, come over to Signal of Doom. If you want to listen to me slowly age out, yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Very simple. Type in Signal of Doom. Me and my buddy Richard, we play through the hits. A lot of coverage at the moment on Johnny Cash's new album. He's back. The Man in Black is back. From the tomb, he's going to reclaim number one. But it's good times. Unfortunately, unlike Kevin, I'm not, doing reaction shows or anything other than just the normal weekly show. My reaction typically to pop culture is one of disgust. Yeah, but we're rocking and rolling. We're doing what we can, so check us out.
Very nice. And for me, as usual, I am Brother Head. I am, my website's still down. I haven't had time to work on that. I need to get that back up. But I'm on Facebook, X, Instagram, all of it under Headcast Network. I'm also on Pornhub. That's a secret. Thank you.
OnlyFans.
That's why I wear a mask when I do that. No, it's a G.I. Joe mask. I don't know. It's pretty obvious. Big fat guy wearing a G.I. Joe mask. That's Brother Ed. No. Anyway. Being also, I say on Facebook, I'm on facebook.com/G.I. Joe. Over on YouTube, I've got this show, which is G.I. Joe Royal American Headcast, where we talk about G.I. Joe, the cartoon and the comic. We have Bravo Team, which we're going to be looking at. Next episode, we're actually going to be looking at the yearbook number 3. But besides that, we're switching back and forth between the Order of Battle and the special missions. The Order of Battle is taking a little longer than I thought it was going to take. I thought maybe we'd get 1 or 2 issues knocked out in an episode. Joke's on me. We're doing like half an issue an episode, but it's all right. Get some good talk with some great guys. And Kevin. No, definitely. Yeah.
Well, Kevin.
As I mentioned earlier, visit us on Patreon, patreon.com/Headcast Network. If you want, there's a phone number at the bottom of the screen, 559-500-3182. Call and leave a message. I can play that on the air.
You get death threats.
I'm waiting something. I would welcome death threats at this point. You should get Jarrod calling in and acting goofy, but But yeah, join us on Patreon, leave a message, and join us monthly here on G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast. But I think that's going to do it for this episode. Like I said, I got my other shows. I got Head Speaks, Task Force X, the Starman Adventure Show, and my Starbright Project. Almost forgot about those. Voyager's Cast, I finally finished. We'll watch that entire series, which I enjoyed, but that's another point entirely. Definitely look us up. And I guess that's going to do it for this month. Join us next month when we look at what I say it was Memories of Mara for the comic or for the cartoon and issue 58.
Yep.
Which I will definitely talk about next.
For the record, doing like half an issue of the Order Battle is the way to do it because we get into a lot of it and it's a lot of fun. So,
yes.
Yeah. You can't rush through that stuff. That stuff's gold. So yeah.
Well, it's not very much to it. We'll do these quick. I'll probably get 2 episodes or 2 issues done in an episode. And as we get going through, 2 hours in, oh God, we're only a quarter of the way through this thing. What the heck? It's going to take longer than I thought.
There's a lot to read out. You've got to read out all the stuff. It's like, Jesus Christ, it's like a job.
And then everyone has thoughts on a lot of these characters. And I enjoy hearing everyone's thoughts on it. So definitely.
Do you want to hear everybody's thoughts except my thoughts about Raptor?
How do I drop Radford? Stay around for the PSA that I think it was Kevin mentioned earlier.
I did, yeah. Barbecue and the don't pull the fire alarm.
I'll be playing that PSA here in a little bit. But until next month, remember, knowing is half the battle.
Yo, Joe!
Hey, watch this. You're going to pull that alarm? Why not? It'll be fun.
That kind of fun can cost a life.
Barbecue!
False alarms are no joke. They keep firefighters away from the real action. And in this business, a few seconds can mean the difference between life and death. Remember, a firefighter's job is to fight fires.
Not answer false alarms. Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, is available monthly on iTunes, Stitcher, and at headspeaks.com. All characters and stories are owned and trademarked by their respective owners. We claim no ownership other than our opinions. All audio and images are used for entertainment purposes and falls under fair use. We make no money from this headcast. For more of the monthly G.I. Joe, check out the IDW series. For the stories we're covering, look for the comics and trade paperbacks. Let us know what you think. Send us an email letting us know your thoughts. Joe's dismissed.